Hello and welcome to my first video about the new Sony 85mm F1.4 GM2.
And before we get into it, if you want a free 2.5-hour wedding photography course, as well as a new preset pack, I'll put a link down below.
This 85mm F1.4 GM2 is my favorite Sony release of the year, and maybe my favorite release since the Sony 35mm F1.4 GM. I guess I should also put a bit of a box around this. These are my favorite lenses for weddings and portraits, and weddings are the core of my work as a photographer and video creator. The reason I think you should care about this lens is because it's optically incredible and it's at a reasonable size now to carry with you all day. I am a big fan of a minimal kit and I rarely bring more than 4 lenses to a wedding day. I have been using the 85mm F1.8 for a while now because it's small and more than good enough. Now the question is the GM2 worth the additional cost? First, who am I? I'm Taylor Jackson and I have photographed over 1,000 weddings in my career, mostly on Nikon. I tried to switch to Sony in 2016 and then again in 2018 with the Sony a7 III. I could tell that what they were doing in mirrorless was going to be the future. The glass mostly rendered like you were shooting through a Heineken bottle. Fortunately, gone are those days. So yes, the lens is great. They fixed the problems of the original 85mm F1.4 GM, which I did like overall. It just felt a little bit heavy and awkward. When I compared the original GM with the Sony 85mm F1.8, I mostly preferred the 1.8 version, and when taking price and weight into consideration, the 1.8 was a clear winner for me. That 85 1.8 has been in my bag for every wedding that I've shot on Sony over the past couple of years. But now onto the 85mm GM2. I only had this pre-production lens to try out for 2 weeks, but I did manage to photograph 3 weddings and 3 engagement sessions with it. 3 of these shoots were booked through the Focal Ignite program. If you're familiar with Ignite and Focal is a company that I'm a part owner of. And we started this crazy new program that has generated over 5,000 total inquiries in the past 3 months for photographers in the program. Some of the photographers in the program have already booked over 10 weddings from it, which means $40,000 in extra revenue into their business. And that's not even the crazy part. The crazy part is that the Focal Ignite program both generates those leads for you, and then you get a studio sales manager that will respond to those inquiries and will actually sell your services, so you just get to relax and do whatever it is that you do. But there is a catch. You have to be a good photographer. So if you're a good photographer and you want someone to do the sales work and book you weddings, check out the program, link down below. Back to the 85mm F1.4 GM2. One of the criticisms that I hear a lot now is that Sony glass is becoming too clinical. Maybe that's why we're all sticking $60 mist filters in front of our brand new $2,000 lenses. And this might be a controversial point or maybe something that makes no sense to you. One of the reasons I'm a big fan of Leica glass is because it renders very true to life, that when I look through the screen right now at you, wow, you look good. Did you do something different with your hair today? It looks very nice. When I look at you, sorry to make it weird now, I don't see every individual pore in your face. And that's not to say that my eyes lack sharpness. I was a pilot and they made sure that my eyes could see the other planes real good. When I take photos at a wedding, I am in the mindset that I want people to look their best. I use glass and editing to make them feel maybe even better than real life. And all these things considered, this 85mm lens supports that. When paired with a recent Sony camera like this Sony A9 Mark III or the Sony A9 IV that I'm recording this on, no, this is the Sony A7 IV, we're recording on the A9 III. The focus is always going to be bang on. It is fast, quiet, and incredibly accurate. Oh, and I should also mention that I shoot this lens at 1.4 until given a reason not to. Usually that reason is if I'm doing a group shot with a group of people that can't all be on the same focus plane. Otherwise, I tend to control the depth of field with my distance to my subject. A single person I can be pretty close to and still get them in focus. If it's a couple and they're on slightly different focus planes, I'll step back a little bit and they'll both be close enough. This is mostly important just for the standard shots that the parents and the family are going to print, and maybe they're going to print them a little bit larger. Other shots, especially anything artistic, I don't think it's critical that both members are in complete sharp focus from the tip of their nose all the way back to their head. I am fine to let that shallow depth of field hit their eye and roll off. I feel like this builds layers and makes it a more cinematic feeling. There's obviously a line to this and that line is different for everyone, but that is my personal preference. The fall off from focus to out of focus on this lens is wonderful. It adds a natural soft feeling to the image that I love. If you're blessed with good lighting, this lens really does pop. The 3-dimensional rendering, the pleasing bokeh, and how easy it is to get great results really set this lens apart for me. When it comes to the physical, it has an iris lock. I personally set this to A and then control my aperture from the front dial. My middle back dial is set to shutter speed and the side dial is set to ISO. I'm a huge fan of this style of button layout for my wedding days. Typically, I'm always shooting in full manual, but there's nothing wrong with aperture priority or manual with auto ISO. I find that full manual just helps me limit my silly mistakes. I also shoot a lot of photo video hybrid coverage at weddings, and that always means that I am in manual for video, so I don't let the focus drift as a high contrast dress or suit walks close or far away from the camera. Because of that, I also tend to lock my white balance down, and I would say it's usually on cloudy even when I'm outside in the sun. I don't really love Sony's choices when it comes to white balance, so this just gets me closer to the final image. The images you've been seeing on the screen have all been from my recent preset pack. If you're a member, you have access to them all, plus all of my courses. If you're not a member, I'll put a link to a $100 off coupon in the description below. I just put up a full course over on the members website, and 2 of the bonus videos are about how you yourself can get pre-production gear like this Sony 85mm F1.4 GM2, although it's out now, so you probably won't get this one, but you might get something else in the future. 100% money back guarantee if you sign up. It's not for you. Just let me know, I'll send your money back. Now let's talk about this 85mm lens on a wedding day. First, I love that it easily fits into my bag. I don't like to have multiple bags, so my gear build out for pretty much every wedding looks something like this. A Sony A7 IV with the Sony 20mm F1.8 is the wide backup lens that I use, and it is in case I get into a cake cut or a family group shot that wants 50 people in a tiny hallway. Next slot in my bag, the Tamron 35 to 150 f2 to f2.8. This is a lens that I use for mostly ceremonies, although you could easily use this 85 1.4, which I actually did at this wedding day here, and I really enjoyed it. And then the last slot in my bag is for the 35mm f1.4 GM that I'm filming this on, and then an 85 as well in my hands on the Sony A9 Mark III. I know a lot of photographers that don't run a longer lens like a 70 to 200 or 70 to 180 or the 35 to 150 during a ceremony, and will just use this 85mm instead. And you can also put a button up here to go into APS-C crop mode. So if you're on a higher megapixel camera body, you are easily able to crop in within your camera and get a little bonus reach out of this when needed. Will I personally be buying this 85mm f1.4 GM2? The answer is yes. I don't get to keep this one, sadly, and it has to go back tomorrow, but I will be buying one, and it will become one of the main lenses that I use all wedding day. And then also primarily, I would say it's the primary lens that I use at receptions when things get dark. Any questions about the lens? Feel free to put them down below. I'm going to be doing a few videos, full wedding days, as well as some shoots. So subscribe to the channel, turn the bell on if you're interested in that. They'll be coming out over the next few days.
And don't forget, if you want that free 2.5-hour wedding photography course, as well as a preset pack and other bonus extras, all for free, there's a link down below.